We begin tonight's programme by turning our attention to the United States, where Donald Trump has taken a narrow lead over his Democratic rival Kamala Harris. Well, as anticipation builds for their first debate face-off, the political landscape is set for a captivating and consequential showdown. Well, for all the latest, we can cross now to Washington and speak to our correspondent there, Nick Harper. Nick, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The polls suggest it's a very tight race, with one Sunday poll suggesting a slight lead for Donald Trump. Just talk us through how the polls have been evolving during the last couple of weeks.
Well, Tom, we've seen a complete shift, really a complete 180 since we've seen the change of candidate for the Democrats. Just a few weeks ago, when it was Joe Biden at the top of the ticket, Donald Trump was leading him by about 5 percentage points or so. That lead has been significantly cut now that we have Kamala Harris representing the Democratic Party. Some polls even suggesting last week that she was ahead of Trump by as much as 5 or 6%. But this poll out over the weekend, the New York Times Siena polls, suggested that if the election were held today, Donald Trump would get 48% of the vote. Kamala Harris would get 47% of the vote. So a very tight neck-and-neck race, according to this survey. And then if you break it down further, looking at the 7 swing states that essentially could decide this election, we see that Kamala Harris is leading in 3 of them: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That's the famous blue wall that the Democrats know that they need to win if she has a chance of winning the White House. And then they are tied in the 4 other swing states, in Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. One interesting detail to come out of this poll is that many voters feel that they simply don't know enough about Kamala Harris to make a decision. 28% of registered voters said that they needed to know more about her before they could make a decision on her, whereas Donald Trump, of course, has much more of a record: 4 years in the Oval Office. Only 9% saying that they needed to know more about him. We have seen those polls shift dramatically, and at the moment, 8 weeks out to the election, looking incredibly tight.
Yeah, well, obviously, tomorrow voters will find out more about Kamala Harris, because she's going to go head-to-head with Donald Trump, who will probably be their only face-off on the campaign. Just tell us a little bit about what the 2 candidates are doing today and what we can expect from their debate tomorrow.
Kamala Harris remains at a hotel in Pittsburgh in the state of Pennsylvania. She's been there for about a week, really heavily engaged in that debate preparation. We're told that she's been holding mock debates, 90 minutes without break, where she has set up a stage with studio lighting. She even has someone standing in for Donald Trump so that she can debate with that person in real time. Donald Trump, though, he remains at his property in Florida at Mar-a-Lago. We're told that his debate preparation hasn't been quite as rigorous. We're told he's only held a handful of sessions with advisors, mainly recapping on policy knowledge. But bear in mind that he is in many ways much more of a debate expert than Kamala Harris. This will be his 7th presidential debate. He had 3 against Hillary Clinton back in 2016, 2 against Biden in 2020, and of course another against Biden just a few months before in June this year. During the actual debate itself, we know that the mics will be muted for the other candidate when their rival is speaking. Now that means no interruptions, but it doesn't mean there won't be any distractions. Bear in mind that Donald Trump likes to get under the skin of the other candidate. He likes to switch direction, change subject, essentially talk about what he wants to talk about. And also, there is the possibility of falsehoods. There is a question as to whether Kamala Harris will be able to fact-check him in real time. We're told, though, that from her advisors, she aims to remain cool-headed and act presidential. But she'll also need to lay out more policy details. In many ways, her campaign has been somewhat light on policies so far. She'll need to explain to voters why they need to vote for her. But there is also a worry from the Trump camp that they don't know what type of Trump will appear on the debate stage. Will it be happy Trump, or will it be, in their words, mean bully Trump? Of course, they're hoping that it will be the former, and they're also hoping that their candidate can remain on message and look to the future rather than litigate the past and speak about what went wrong in the 2020 election that, of course, he still feels was stolen from him by Joe Biden.
And just tell us, what's the thinking about what sort of an impact that debate could end up having on voter intentions and ultimately on the opinion polls?
Well, Tom, these presidential debates, they are huge calendar moments in presidential cycles. We've just had the conventions, the 4-day events for both the Republicans first in Milwaukee and then the Democrats in Chicago, where they were able to lay out their platform, of course, introduce and formally nominate their candidate, give plenty of speeches. But it is really the debate where they go toe-to-toe. These two candidates, unscripted, in front of an audience of millions watching, 90 minutes where essentially anything can happen. And therefore, there is a huge potential for it to move the needle when it comes to voters out there. Of course, for Joe Biden, it was essentially campaign ending. He did so badly in June's debate against Donald Trump that he then dropped out just a few weeks later. The thinking is that for Kamala Harris, there is more risk reward for her. She perhaps needs to do more to win over voters, to tell her what she's all about. But I think it's also worth bearing in mind that we've already seen Donald Trump do what he does ahead of debates, and that's blame the host that will be hosting this, the network ABC, saying that they are an unfair network, that they've never been fair to him or his presidential campaign. Really trying to set expectations low, trying to point out that if things go badly wrong for him on the night, it'll be all down to the network rather than his own performance in front of Kamala Harris and those millions of viewers.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed. Our Washington correspondent, Nick Harper, thank you so much for bringing us all the latest there.